Den of Thieves is the most gun-accurate heist film since Michael Mann's Heat, pun intended. And the weapons chosen for this movie are absolutely insane. Den of Thieves wastes no time. Within the first few minutes, Ray Merriman, played by Pablo Schreiber, steps out into the dark and levels an HK-416D at the police. It's the film's opening statement of intent. This crew doesn't play with budget hardware. The Heckler & Koch 416 was originally developed at the direct request of Delta Force operators who wanted the reliability of HK's short-stroke piston system in an M4 compatible package. Unlike the standard M4, the piston design prevents hot carbon gases from cycling back into the receiver, a critical advantage in the dusty, sandy environments of Iraq and Afghanistan. The Norwegian Armed Forces adopted the 416 as their standard service rifle, and in 2016, France replaced the iconic FAMAS with the 416 as their primary infantry weapon, an enormous contract that cemented its reputation. Perhaps most famously, it was the 416 that Navy SEALs carried during Operation Neptune Spear, the 2011 raid that killed Osama bin Laden. Merriman, being a former MARSOC Marine carrying a 416 in the opening scene, is not a prop department coincidence. It's a deliberate character choice that any gun guy in the audience would immediately respect. But Merriman isn't the only one bringing heavy iron to that opening robbery, because another member of his crew is using something that fires 12-gauge shells from a 20-round drum magazine. Crew member Marcus Rhodes is holding a Saiga 12K shotgun with a 20-round drum magazine. It is an absolute monster of a gun, and it looks every bit as savage as it sounds. The Saiga 12K is an AK-47-derived semi-automatic shotgun developed in Russia in the early 1990s after the fall of the Soviet Union, when the Izhmash factory needed to monetize its military production lines for the civilian market. The K stands for Korotki, Russian for short, giving it a cut-down barrel that makes it ideal for extremely tight spaces. Because it runs on the same long-stroke gas piston system as the Kalashnikov, it is famously reliable, and will cycle everything from light birdshot to heavy buckshot without complaint. Importation of Saiga shotguns to the United States was banned in 2014 due to sanctions against Russia following the annexation of Crimea, making existing examples increasingly collectible. And with 20 shells of 12-gauge in that drum magazine, Marcus Rhodes didn't need to win a firefight. He just needed to end it in seconds. The opening robbery sets the tone. But now the film slows down and lets you see who these people really are. And at a shooting range, Big Nick O'Brien shows you exactly what kind of cop he is, with a pistol that's anything but standard issue. After that explosive opening, the film shifts gears and introduces Detective Big Nick O'Brien, played by Gerard Butler, at a shooting range, where his Smith & Wesson M&P immediately signals that this is a cop who takes his kit seriously. The M&P, which stands for military and police, was Smith & Wesson's direct answer to Glock when it launched in 2005, targeting law enforcement contracts across the United States. What sets it apart is the 3 interchangeable palm swell grip inserts included in the box, making it one of the most ergonomically adjustable duty pistols on the market. The M&P platform is now the service weapon of choice for dozens of U.S. federal agencies, including many divisions of the FBI. Nick shoots alone at that range, but a few feet away, the man he's hunting is there, running a pistol with a military pedigree that goes all the way back to a lost U.S. Army contract in 1984. And a few shooting lanes over, we see Ray Merriman putting rounds through a Sig Sauer P226. It's a character-defining moment. Merriman doesn't spray. He shoots with precision and control, and the P226 in his hands feels completely natural. It should. The gun was built for exactly the kind of operator Merrimen used to be. The P226 has been the U.S. Navy SEAL service pistol for decades, making it the ideal sidearm for a former MARSOC Marine like Merrimen. It was originally developed for the U.S. Army's XM9 pistol trials in 1984, where it actually outscored the Beretta M9 in nearly every performance category, yet still lost the contract, reportedly because Beretta's bid came in lower. SIG disputed the results, and the controversy elevated the P226's mystique into legend. It fires 9mm and holds 15+1 rounds in its double-stack magazine, with a notoriously smooth double-action/single-action trigger that has made it a favorite of special operations units and law enforcement worldwide for over 4 decades. 2 men, 2 shooting lanes, 2 very different agendas. And when those agendas finally collide on a Los Angeles highway, the deputies who try to stop the crew are carrying the most prolific military carbine in American history. When the highway ambush sequence explodes onto the screen, members of Nick's crew, Gus, Tony, and Borracho, come out of their vehicles with M4A1 carbines. It's the natural choice. Fast handling, lightweight, and accepting every rail accessory known to man. But what's interesting here is that the M4A1 also serves a deliberate visual storytelling function. It marks these men as law enforcement standard issue, in direct contrast to the premium hardware the thieves are running. The M4A1 is a shortened, select-fire variant of the M16 that officially entered U.S. military service in 1994 and became the standard service rifle of the U.S. Army in 2015, replacing the longer M16 variants entirely. With its 14.5-inch barrel, it fires 5.56 by 45mm NATO and weighs just 6.3 pounds unloaded, making it extremely maneuverable in urban close-quarters environments. More M4A1s have been produced and fielded than any other firearm in modern American military history, and its modular Picatinny rail system means it can accept virtually any optic, light, laser, or accessory on the market. In a film obsessed with weapon authenticity, the M4A1 on the cop side versus the exotic hardware on the criminal side is the gun equivalent of a class system, and the audience feels it. The M4A1s are doing their job, but they're about to be completely overwhelmed, because Merrimen is dragging something out of a vehicle that fires belt-fed ammunition at 1,000 rounds per minute. In one of the most audacious villain moments in recent action cinema, Merrimen raises an M249 squad automatic weapon to open the highway shootout, bringing military-grade firepower to a street that was completely unprepared for it. The sight of a belt-fed light machine gun being deployed against law enforcement on a Los Angeles highway is the moment Den of Thieves earns its comparison to Heat, and it hits hard. The M249 is the U.S. military's adaptation of the Belgian FN Minimi light machine gun, adopted in 1984 to restore the sustained suppressive fire capability that infantry squads had been missing since the retirement of the Browning automatic rifle. It fires 5.56mm NATO at a cyclic rate of up to 1,000 rounds per minute from disintegrating belt-fed ammunition loaded in 200-round soft pouches. Though in a pinch, it can also accept standard M16 and M4 Stanag magazines. The SAW is suppressing everything in its path, but 50 Cent's character is running something on that highway that's just as surprising in a completely different way. It looks like a rifle, but it's hiding a pistol inside it. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson's character is firing what looks like a compact submachine gun when he is engaging the police, but it's actually a CAA Roni carbine conversion kit with a pistol locked inside it. The Roni, named after the daughter of CAA founder Moshe Oz, is a chassis system that clamps around a standard handgun and converts it into a shoulder-fired personal defense weapon. It adds a folding stock, a full-length Picatinny rail, a vertical foregrip, a spare magazine holder built into the grip, and dramatically extends the sight radius, effectively turning a 25-yard pistol into something that can reach out past 100 yards accurately. The Roni is used in real life by Israeli law enforcement units and several special operations elements around the world. The Roni is resourceful and unexpected, but the next gun in this highway battle is the one that pays direct homage to Michael Mann's Heat. Same Belgian manufacturer, 3 decades later, in the hands of a cop who refuses to lose. During the highway firefight, Big Nick O'Brien steps out of cover with an FN Scar L. And for anyone who grew up watching Heat, the choice of manufacturer is not subtle. Al Pacino carried an FN-FNC in that 1995 masterpiece. Butler is carrying a modern FN battle rifle in a similar sequence of Den of Thieves. Same Belgian manufacturer, different era. Director Christian Gudegast has openly acknowledged the Heat influence, and this gun is a direct visual nod to it. The Scar L, Special Operations Forces Combat Assault Rifle, Light, was developed by FN Herstal exclusively for US SOCOM beginning in 2004, and first deployed to combat with the US Army's 75th Ranger Regiment in 2009. It fires 5.56mm NATO from standard Stanag magazines and features a side-folding adjustable polymer stock and fully ambidextrous controls, making it one of the most operator-friendly battle rifles ever fielded. SOCOM ultimately canceled their Scar L procurement and shifted focus to the heavier 7.62mm Scar H, but the rifle went on to become standard issue for Belgium, Portugal, and over 20 other nations. Nick's Scar is making an impression, but the most expensive rifle in this entire highway battle belongs to one of the thieves, and it's a hand-built American AR with a barrel so short it's legally a different category of firearm entirely. Among the thieves on that highway, crew member Bosco, played by Evan Jones, is running a Noveske N4 Diplomat. It's compact, brutish, and expensive. A fitting weapon for a man doing a $30 million job. The short barrel and distinctive flash suppressor make it identifiable on screen even in the chaos of the firefight. The Noveske N4 Diplomat is built around a 7.94-inch barrel, a length so extreme that under the National Firearms Act, it is legally classified as a short-barreled rifle requiring a $200 tax stamp and months of federal paperwork to own. It is hand-built at Noveske Rifle Works using a precision-machined billet aluminum receiver, the same aircraft-grade alloy used in aerospace structural components. At a retail price of around $3,000, it is one of the most premium AR pattern rifles money can buy. And firing 5.56mm out of a barrel that short produces a muzzle fireball that witnesses frequently mistake for an explosion. But the film isn't over, and neither is Merrimen. When the final confrontation arrives, he pulls out a compact .45 ACP sidearm that was literally co-designed by Delta Force. When the dust settles from the highway and the film moves into its final act, Merrimen's sidearm comes into its own. The H&K 45C. It's the gun he uses in the film's most personal moments of violence. Up close, controlled, and utterly deliberate. In the climactic confrontation scene, he performs a one-handed reload by pinning the pistol against his knee, inserting a fresh magazine, and racking the slide with the heel of his boot. A technique that is real, trained, and not something a prop department invented. The HK-45C was developed with direct input from retired Delta Force operator Larry Vickers and firearms instructor Ken Hackathorn, making it one of the rare handguns on the market that was genuinely designed by the Special Operations community for the Special Operations community. The compact tactical variant was adopted by Naval Special Warfare Command, including SEAL Team 6, as the Mark 24 Mod 0 combat assault pistol. Merrimen's HK pistol is as serious as it gets for a sidearm, but Big Nick's answer in that final confrontation is a .45 ACP pistol that holds 15 rounds, was built to replace the Beretta M9 for the US military, and came from the factory ready for a suppressor. In the film's final confrontation, Big Nick O'Brien draws his FNX 45 Tactical. It's a gun that was clearly chosen and staged for this exact moment, and it's the last weapon Nick needs to finish the job. The FNX 45 Tactical has one of the most interesting origin stories in modern handgun history. It began as FN's submission for the US military's Joint Combat Pistol Program in 2005, a competition to replace the aging Beretta M9 with a .45 ACP pistol. The program was canceled before a winner was ever declared, but FN refined the design and released it to the commercial market in 2012 anyway, and gun enthusiasts immediately understood what they were looking at. It holds 15+1 rounds of .45 ACP, more than almost any other pistol in its caliber, and comes from the factory with a threaded suppressor-ready barrel, tritium suppressor height night sights, and fully ambidextrous controls as standard. Den of Thieves is a love letter to serious firearms, serious tactics, and serious action cinema. And if you want to see how every single one of the gun choices stacks up in our next video, make sure you're subscribed.